Today, we're going to speak on the Spanish Golden Visa. And as I'm sure you are all aware, there's been some big changes happened last week with regards to the Spanish Golden Visa, namely that it is going to actually change. We don't quite know how. So I'll go into that and tell you exactly what we know and how long we think we've got and how that will work moving forward. So I'll go into that. It very much feels like Spain is kind of following what happened to Portugal last year, where, if you don't know, Portugal had the Golden Visa amended in that you couldn't buy property in order to qualify for the Golden Visa, which by a million miles is the most popular way of doing it because it was the cheapest way. Now, Spain have come out and said, which we'll come on to, that we're going to essentially change the Spanish Golden Visa. There's been a lot of headlines that says the Spain Golden Visa is going to go. Well, it won't go, but it's certainly going to be changed. And what that change is, we don't quite know. So we will cover that today. Just a bit of housekeeping. My name's Sam Daynes. I'm a senior wealth manager here at Holborn Pass. You've got on the screen at the moment my WhatsApp number, which is the number there, 0044 number. That's a UK number, but I actually am based here in Spain. I'm here, I live and I work over here in Spain, but you can WhatsApp me on that number. You've also got my email there, sam.danes@holbornassets.com. Do make a note of that because there will no doubt be questions. We are slightly limited on time, and I know we've got to go through what the changes are. I've got some questions which we'll do at the end. If you do have any questions, then it's even if you ask them now, I'll address them at the end just to make sure we can cover everything. I've also put a QR code in there. If you scan that with your phone, you should be able to book yourself directly into my diary. That being said, I know a lot of people that are watching this webinar, and there's a fair few. There'll be a lot of people from countries with very different time office hours to us here at Holborn. So what I suggest, if anyone wants an appointment, the best way to do it, if you want to speak and have a free consultation, is send me an email because I can fit you in. I can do an evening appointment here in Spain or a very early morning appointment if that suits you. If you do the QR code, you're just going to be given our normal office hours. We are incredibly busy at the moment because of the withdrawal of the Spanish Golden Visa. In the last week, we've been absolutely inundated with people looking to proceed, and we'll come on to why that is very, very shortly. So that's all of this there. Make a note of my number, make a note of the email, got the QR code there. You can also find me on YouTube as well. If you Google my name on YouTube, Sam Daynes, then you can actually find some other videos I've done on the Spanish Golden Visa. So let's move on then. So what we're going to go through today, first of all, is I'll just tell you a little bit about Holborn Assets and Holborn Pass, just a little bit about who we are, what we do, and how it fits into you getting the Golden Visa. Very importantly, next, I'll talk about the breaking news which came out last week on the Spanish Golden Visa and really where we stand as of today with regards to that, timescales, that sort of thing, and what that means. We've got Portugal as a kind of template to kind of know what we think is going to happen. So we can talk you through that. Give you a bit of information on what residency by investment means and what citizenship by investment means, because they are two very different things. They normally go hand in hand, but we'll talk a little bit about that. A bit about Spain's Golden Visa program as it stands now. That's obviously going to change. And again, we'll talk about when we think that will be, what the process and the benefits of the Spanish Golden Visa are, what sort of options you currently have to get the Golden Visa. And as it stands at the moment, you still have those options, but obviously that will change. So we go through that towards the end. And then I'll answer any questions that I've got. We've had a lot sent in before the webinar. I'm sure people are asked questions as we go along. But as I say, if you make a note of my email from the previous screen, you can always ask any individual questions there as well if I don't get time to go through everything. So just a little bit about Holborn Assets and Holborn Pass. I know everybody's really interested in knowing more about Spanish Golden Visa, but it's important that we just sort of go through this. Now, essentially, Holborn Assets, we're a wealth management firm. So we started back in 1998. So we've been going a very long time. We're a British family firm. We've got over 500 employees, and we work out of 20 international offices, including the one here in Spain. So our office here, and the office I work for, is in the Malaga region in Spain. But we have 20 offices all around the world. It means we're able to offer financial advice when people move. So if you move from one country to another, as people often do, then we can continue to give you financial advice as and when you move around. We're fully regulated in all the countries that we operate in, including the UK, including here in Spain, but we've got offices in Dubai, South Africa, well, literally all around the world. We look after around 25,000 clients now as well. So we have a large client base. Um, and myself, I actually live here in Spain. So I've lived in Spain for the last 6 years. My previous employment, if you like, in the UK was I worked for HSBC, Nationwide Building Society, Wesleyan, and I've been given financial advice since for around 23, 24 years now. So I've been doing it a very, very long time. Now, just to tell you how that links in really with the idea of the Spanish Golden Visa. It's around 6 or 7 years ago, as a wealth management firm, first and foremost, we look at what assets and what investments are best for our clients. But there was an increased and growing demand for people looking for the right to move around, for example, Europe or wherever it may be in the world. So people were looking for golden visa programs where they could get residency and citizenship by investing money. But obviously they wanted to do it in a way that the money you're investing is very, into a very good, very strong investment with good returns. So it made sense for us as a company really to form Holborn Pass. And that is a division of us which effectively looks at the golden visa programs, and we do all the golden visa programs. So we do Spain, we've got Portugal, Greece, the USA, Dubai, St. Kitts, St. Lucia. We do all of them, but obviously I concentrate here in Spain on the Spanish golden visa. I've been through the process myself, or process of residency myself, so I know what it's like to get it all sorted here in Spain, which can be tricky. But as I say, for us here at Holborn Pass, is that investment is the priority, because the background of where we come from, the idea was to look at the very best investments that are going to give you the golden visa, and in this case, the Spanish golden visa. In terms of applications processed, we've done well in excess of 1,000 applicants now for the golden visa. A lot of them were in Portugal, and we've had a 100% success rate. We've never had one that's been declined. So every single application we put through has been accepted and has had the golden visa. We're also the #1 providers of the golden visa in Portugal and in Spain. So we've actually grown our division to the point now that we are the go-to company for people looking to get a golden visa. We won many investment awards, as you can see at the sort of top right. We're rated excellent on Trustpilot, and there's lots of reviews on there for people that have used us. So you should feel in safe hands when using us. And that just sort of giving you a bit of information really though, how the wealth management side of it fits into people that are looking for citizenship and residency, because it should go hand in hand. And obviously, when you do move, you want to continue to have financial advice, which we can continue to do as a company to make sure all your investments, etc., are tax efficient and set up in the correct way. So that's a little bit about Holborn Assets and Holborn Pass. As I say, I've lived here in Spain for 6 years. I work out of our Spanish office. I'm very familiar here with the process and how everything works. And as I say, I've been through it myself. But let's start off then by talking about what changes do we know about the Spanish golden visa. So Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, and his Council of Ministers effectively announced their intention to eliminate the golden visa last week. So they came out and they said that we're going to get, the word eliminate the golden visa was a bit misleading. What they've essentially done is they've looked at the housing market in Spain, and they've come to the conclusion that the golden visa program is creating an increase effectively in house prices, which there is a problem in certain areas of Spain with increasing house prices, making it very hard for people to afford to get onto the housing ladder, etc., etc. Now, it is worthy to note this, and I have put it on at the bottom here because it is an interesting fact. Now, as it stands at the moment, the governments have not made any changes. It's completely business as usual. So anybody looking to get the golden visa in the way that I'm going to explain today can still continue to do it, but it's being reviewed and it's being looked at. No changes have been recommended yet. They're actually doing their investigation in what can they do and what will make a difference. But as the April the 9th press conference, nothing had changed. Now, in 2023, there were 3,273 golden visas issued. Okay, now 94% of them applications came from real estate. Now, that is, if you put that in the context of there were 586,000 housing transactions in the same year, and presuming every one of them 94% of the golden visa applications were linked to a golden visa, then it's going to represent less than 0.5% of the market. So what I mean by that is it doesn't really matter what happens with a golden visa program, essentially. It represents such a small drop in the ocean to the Spanish economy and the housing market, that it's going to be hard really for the government, for the Spanish government, to really justify making any massive changes. But obviously they need to look at this. And a lot of this has come because it is a new government here in Spain. And we knew this is coming. Anyone that's watched my webinars, we know I've mentioned this many times. We know it's going to go. It was never about, if, it was always when is it going to go? It's come relatively soon. But obviously we still have time. So what's going to happen now? There's no formal proposals. They're going to go away and they're going to put together some ideas. Now, these ideas could be anything from eliminating, for example, residential real estate for qualification in the gold visa. They could limit which region qualifies. So, for example, they could say we've got a housing problem in Madrid or Barcelona or wherever it may be. Therefore, real estate in them cities or towns or wherever it may be don't qualify. Okay, so it might not be as simple as they're going to move real estate. It might be a tweak to the rules that are already there, or it could be that they do completely eliminate it. But going back to the statistics I mentioned before, it's hard for them to justify an all-out ban on the real estate qualifying because it's such a drop in the ocean in terms of the house price issue that you have here in Spain. And another point to note is that the Spanish program here, the Golden Visa program, since its inception in 2013, has basically been largely unchanged. It stayed the same. There's not been any amendments to it. Whilst other popular Golden Visa programs like Greece or Portugal, they've actually had lots of modifications over the period of time that they've been in place for. So, for example, Portugal increased the value that you had to invest in property initially. Then it changed. It was only certain regions that qualified, certain types of properties that qualified. So it went through a number of changes to get to the point it was. And then it was eventually removed last year. With this could be the start of some changes being made, but it might not be that it's going to completely go. It could just be the start of it. We don't know. But that's where I'm going with this. We don't, because it's not changed, it's possible that it will change. Another important point to notice that under Spanish law, you can't take things away retrospectively. It's basically what it means on this slide. So if you already have a golden visa, or you start the process now and you get your golden visa, they can't, by law, retrospectively take it away from you. So once you're in that Spanish golden visa program with the real estate, that will continue to apply for you forever, essentially. It can only be brought in to stop. Now, bearing in mind with regards to Portugal removed their golden visa last year, announced it around February or March. This is the property element of the golden visa. And it was not fully removed till September, October. So we actually had a good sort of 7 or 8 months to get lots and lots of applications through. And we did get them all through. We had a 100% success rate. But the point with this is if you are looking to potentially do something with the Spanish golden visa, you need to be looking now, not further down the line, because we know it will change. But as I say, once you've got that golden visa, they can't change that. It will remain under the same conditions that you had the golden visa on, so the buying of the property. So anybody that can get in, then it is worth looking now. So that's kind of where we stand at the moment. We expect that news will trickle out over the coming weeks. As a company, we are estimating potentially 6 months to a year we'll have from now before it completely ends. If it does completely end, that's the kind of timelines, knowing how long it takes to get through the government, through Parliament, through the government, through all the channels it has to go through. So it will definitely give people time now to do it. And you're coming on, to the slides coming up. One of the benefits to the Spanish golden visa is you don't actually have to spend any time in Spain, which works incredibly well for people that were maybe thinking of doing this 2 or 3 years down the line. You can do it now and never actually have to come and live here in Spain. You can just buy the asset and have the asset there to give you the golden visa. And then when you're ready to come over in 3 or 4 years' time, whatever it may be, you can do. So if you are looking to do it now. We are incredibly busy last week. The amount of appointments we're having has just been ridiculous. It's just completely increased because people that were holding off doing this are now deciding they want to do it. So we're getting lots of appointments booked in. So again, I'll put at the end of this webinar my contact details again, but anyone that wants to speak individually about their own situation, I'm more than happy to do that. again, I'll work through some of these slides relatively quickly because I think some people will be more interested in some than others. But just to give you a sort of overview of what we do at Holborn Pass, if you are looking to get the golden visa, we do the whole process. So we do everything from finding an asset, so an asset, a property asset, a real estate asset for you. We do all the due diligence on that. We do appoint all the solicitors. We to help you get your golden visa. So we do all the fingerprints with you. We send somebody along to obviously do all the translations. Effectively, we do everything. We do your tax returns for you on the properties that you buy. We act as a one-stop shop. Now, we don't just do specific parts of that. It's the whole process we do. So what we do is we look at people looking for a very good asset, give them the golden visa. We can then, which we'll talk about later in this webinar, get that sorted out. But essentially, we do everything, and that includes things such as opening a Spanish bank account, which you need to get the golden visa. We can do that all remotely. So all of this on this slide and this one is we do for you. Get your tax number, collecting your cards, doing your annual tax returns, essentially managing the asset. We do it all. And then if eventually you want to apply for citizenship, we do that as well for you. So it is to act as a one-stop shop for the whole process. Now, in terms of the assets we look at when we're talking about the golden visa, it's obviously the golden visa can be any type of real estate. With Spain, we tend to concentrate on commercial assets if it's not for you to live in. So, for example, if you're going to buy a house for 500,000 yourself, well, you can do that yourself and you can live in that house, and that's fine. That will give you the golden visa. But a lot of people don't know where they're going to move yet, and they don't know when they're going to move over to Spain. So if that's the case, if you look at commercial assets that are completely managed on your behalf, you don't have anything to do with it other than the fact it's in your name, you save yourself around 40 or 50,000 in terms of tax. It's that much cheaper to do commercial as opposed to residential. And that's why as a wealth management company, we would favor the commercial option, particularly in Spain, not necessarily Portugal or other places, but in Spain. So we do everything for you. We're a one-stop shop. In terms of what it looks like to go through the golden visa program, this is with us, but it would also be the same if you're using it or you're doing it yourself, as long as you know what you're doing. But from, for example, somebody saying today, yes, I want to go ahead and do it, then what we do is a timeline here. In the first month, it's a matter of signing the legal packages. We get the clients to sign power of attorney. We get your tax number. We do all that within the first month and a half. The power of attorney allows us to open a bank account on your behalf, so we would do all that as well. And it basically takes about three months to get the property, so the asset that we found, registered in your name. So doing all that process takes around 3 months. Once you've got the property, so the deed for the property that shows it's worth 500,000, once you have that, then we will apply to the consulate, book an appointment and apply for the golden visa. Now, the consulate must respond within 21 days of your application. And if they don't respond, it's taken as read that you've got it. So they're incredibly quick, the Spanish golden visa, once you've got the asset. So it can take the 21 days. So you're looking at 3 to 4 months to get the golden visa, the stamp in your passport that allows you to live and work and reside in Spain. However, to get a golden visa, there is a bit more to it because you do need to do things such as biometrics, so your fingerprints, that sort of thing. You need to get your card itself. You need to do the photo to get the physical card. And that normally takes another 2 to 3 months to do that. But you would already have the right to come and go in Spain after that 3 months, but that's to actually get your card. So that part can be delayed a little bit longer if needs be, but you would already have the golden visa. So the Spanish golden visa program is incredibly quick. Compared to other programs. So programs such as Portugal are currently taking about 18 months to get your golden visa. Spain, it's 3 months to get the stamp, 6 months to actually get the physical card. So it's very, very quick. And what I will say is, because obviously time is of the essence to a lot of people, is do be mindful that you're probably going to need help with this, because particularly with Spain, there can be a lot of to and froing in getting things sorted. When I got my residency card, they spelt my name wrong, so I had to go back. They had to start the process again. There was numerous other things that went wrong. When you go along to the consulate or you go along for biometrics, quite rightly, they rarely speak English. If you're not very good at the language, you need to have people come along, which is a service that we provide. But obviously, if you do that on your own, you need to be very careful because it can take a lot longer if you don't have the right professional help with it. So the way it stands at the moment, so just to help you understand about the Spanish golden visa, The idea of it is that any golden visa program, not just Spain, as I say, we do them all, is you can get citizenship or residency by investing into either real estate, making a donation to the government of that particular country, or it could be to the arts or craft, music, or that sort of thing within, depending on the country, investing within a business, investing within funds, investing with bonds. Now, they've all got different thresholds that you have to, the amount you have to invest in. And by far, real estate is the most popular option because it's always the cheaper option. As we say, in Portugal, it's gone. We know it's now changing in Spain, but real estate as part of your investments you have is always a very is diversifying your portfolio, if you like. It's always a really important aspect. So real estate is a really important aspect of anybody's portfolio. The idea of citizenship and residency, they're two very different things. Now, most EU programs, such as Spain and Portugal, are really residency programs. So basically, you get your golden visa and you get the rights of a resident in that country. So that's the right to live, to work, right to pension, healthcare, you can retire in that country. So as if it pretty much gives you a lot of the rights as if you were a citizen of that country, not the right to vote and a few other things. But generally speaking, it gives you pretty much the right to stay, to come and go as you please. And that's residency. Citizenship is when you get the physical passport, and that allows you a few more luxuries. So, for example, an EU passport will allow you to travel around all of Europe. There'll be no minimum stays for other countries. So at the moment, obviously, if you have a residency, you can stay in Spain as long as you like. But if you went across, say, to Portugal, which you can drive from here in about 3 hours, you're then only supposed to spend up to 90 days, and then you'd have to come back to kind of reset the clock. So 90 and 180 days in Portugal. But once you actually get the passport, then you can come and go as you want. But in terms of residency, if you're planning to come to Spain, then it gives you the same sort of rights. So that's the difference in terms of residency and citizenship. A lot of the residency programs in the EU, so including Portugal and Spain, not all of them, they will allow you to change it to being a passport holder after a period of time. So you can go from becoming a resident to being a citizen after a certain period of time. And I'll come on to what that is with Spain. With Portugal, it's 5 years. It's been very popular program because you can actually get an EU passport in Portugal within 5 years. But now property isn't an option, but there are ways of still doing that, which we can help with. If Portugal is of interest, in 5 years, you can get a passport. And there isn't too many minimum stay requirements with Portugal. With Spain, though, you can do it as little as 2 years, but that depends on what passport you have at the moment. And if you're an ex-Spanish colony passport, you can become a citizen in as little as 2 years. But if you've got a passport such as myself, say UK, USA, Australia, non-ex-Spanish colony passports, then it's actually 10 years, so it's longer. But as I say, for all intents and purposes, residency gives you the right to live, to work, to come and go as you please anyway. Now, these are the different programs we do. Now, it's a bit of a busy slide. You don't need to know all of this, but it's just trying to lay out. Now, we do everything from citizenship programs here on the left-hand side, and these tend to be outside of Europe's. So you've got all the nice islands there of Antigua, St. Lucia, Dominica, Grenada. They all have their benefits. You become a passport holder within, could be 2 to 4 months, as long as you make that donation or that investment. But obviously on the side here of the residency programs, Malta, Portugal, Greece, we've got America in there, Spain and the UAE. These give you residency rights, which you can later change to become a citizen. Now, as we stand at the moment with Spain, the passport you can get in 10 years. But as I say before, the residency gives you the right to stay. The minimum investment in Spain, as it stands now we know changes are happening, but is 500,000 into property. Any type of property, commercial, residential, you can buy a parking space for 500,000 and that will qualify as long as the deeds say it's 500,000. We, at the moment, so we've been doing, obviously this might change once we know what the changes are, but as it stands now, for anyone who's interested, we can do it for as little as 350,000. So with some of the commercial opportunities that we have, we can essentially get the rental income paid up front. So for example, someone invests 350,000 and we can have 10 years rental income paid up front at the rate of 3%. So that gives you 150,000, so 10 years rental at 3%, or 500,000 gives you 150,000. You put that with your money to give you the 500,000. Obviously, you don't then get an income from the asset. You have to hold it for a certain period of time. But essentially, you can do it for 350,000. Plus, we include guaranteed buybacks on that as well. So you know that you won't lose any money on it. So people looking for a very quick in with a Spanish Gold Visa can look. We've got two options, which I'll come on to later in this presentation. But do bear in mind, although the minimum is 500,000, we can do it for 350,000. In Portugal, now property is not an option. You need to invest a minimum of 500,000 into investment funds. There are ways of looking at particular investment funds, again, that we do, which can have interest paid up front, so they can work along a similar line to Spain. But the reason I do say that is there's people very keen to get a passport for the EU in 5 years, and they want to look at the Portugal route. We can do that as well. But let's sort of go back to Spain here. Now, with Spain, you can include your children. Children, it says up to the age of 18. That's not strictly true. They can be older than 18 as long as they are financially dependent. So if they're in college, university, or something like that, then as long as we can prove dependency, our team here know what we need to do to prove that dependency. Then you can tag them onto your application. You can tag parents on as well. If they're dependent parents over the age of 65, you can add them on as well. So you can add all these people on for the one investment of the 350 or 500,000, whatever route you do. So you can actually you can basically get an education, you can get retirement, you can get a whole new life for your family for, I know it's not a small amount, but it's not bad amount when you're talking about, say, 5 people being on your application. And you can start that process now. And the other thing with Spain, which I will come on to, there's no minimum stay requirements in Spain. So to keep your golden visa, once you've got it and you've got that asset, you don't have to spend any time at all in Spain whatsoever. The only time you will need to spend time in Spain is if you want to then change that to a passport after the 2 years or the 10 years, depending on where you are from when you apply, what your existing passport is. So that's a little bit about the programs that we do on there as well. Now, in terms of why are people looking at Spain? Well, I mean, I've lived in Spain here for 6 years. It's obviously a very beautiful country. Obviously, you get the weather here. It's a fantastic location. It's voted #1 country worldwide for quality of life. It's a very laid-back lifestyle if you live in Spain, which I'm sure you'll know because anyone watching this probably has an interest in living in Spain. But things are a lot slower. It's a slower pace. It's a nicer, more relaxed lifestyle. It's the second most visited country by international tourists. I think most people have visited Spain, again, due to the weather a lot, but also the location is fantastically useful. As I say, you can drive from here in the Malaga region where I am now over to via Seville into Portugal in around 3.5 hours. And incidentally as well, when you cross the border to go into Portugal, that you don't actually have anybody who stamps your passport or does anything. So when we talk about the 90 and 180 days outside of Spain, once you've actually got your card here, you can just drive into other countries. And there is on some countries, but there's not a lot of border formalities in a lot. For example, Portugal, you just drive across and that's it. So sometimes to work out how long you're spending in other countries is very difficult for anybody to track anyway. Spain's got the fourth biggest economy in the EU and 14th in the world. And certainly since I've been here, you've really noticed that it's booming a lot more here. You can see a lot of retail outlets opening, new business starting, and you can really feel that in the jobs that are available here. So that's a really strong point. Voted the 5th best country to live in. I don't know who's above on that 5, but I'd say it should certainly be up there in the top 1 or 2. 6th best retirement destination, as voted at 2023 annual global retirement index, and it's got the 7th best public healthcare, because obviously you would have the right to public healthcare once you've got the golden visa. I've used the healthcare here, so has my wife and her parents, and it is exceptionally good, the healthcare system in Spain. Obviously you always have the language barrier, but you know, a lot of people do speak English, or obviously a lot of people learn Spanish when you're here as well. So, but it's a really good healthcare system, a really strong healthcare system. Now, the Spain Golden Visa Program. So this is where you get a lot of the facts here. So it started back in 2013, and the idea was to raise foreign direct investment, which it sure has done. There's over three and a half billion has been raised in foreign direct investment, and over that period of time, it's well in excess of 9,000 approved golden visa applications. You saw the statistic at the beginning of this presentation, and that was just last year. So we've really nearly done half of that amount of applications last year. We expect this year is going to go crazy because people will want to get in on this golden visa while they still can. And anybody that can do it, it is advisable to do it now, as I keep saying, because you come down to point number 4 here, is you don't need to spend any time in Spain. So if you were thinking about doing this in 2 or 3 years' time, we pretty much know it's not going to be around in its current form in 2 or 3 years' time. So if you're able to do it now, you can start the process, you can get your golden visa, but you don't have to set foot in Spain. The only time you will need to do that is to do your biometrics as part of the process. Everything else can be done remotely. And once you have your golden visa, you can come and go to Spain as you wish. You can stay as little or as long as you like, and there's no minimum stay. Any non-EU citizen can apply as long as you don't have a criminal record. Even that's a little bit dubious because it's only minor offences are okay. It's anything more serious wouldn't be accepted, obviously. Same with majority of the golden visa programs. And you can include your spouse, your children and your parents all on that one application. So on that one application for the 500,000 or the 350,000 option I mentioned, you could all go onto that one application. We would do the whole process for anybody using us. So we would get all the information for everybody. We would do everything for the whole family coming over. And the benefits you get, you get the right to live and to work in Spain. So similar to what I have, I can come and go in Spain as I wish. I can live here, I can work here, and I'm treated just as if I was ever born here. And I can freely travel in all the 26 Schengen countries. Be mindful of the 90 and 180-day rule until you get citizenship would apply outside of Spain. But obviously to reset your clock, if you know what I mean, you could go from, for example, Portugal, instead of, let's say you're initially from the USA, instead of going back to the USA to reset your clock, you could just pop over the border to Spain and stay in Spain for 90 days and then travel back. So it can be very convenient from that point of view. You can establish a business in all of the Schengen countries, so you're free to set up businesses. There's a 5-year tax exception for expats. Now, we're not specifically tax advisors. We're going to be very careful on this. Our team here, we do have in-house tax advisors that if people are using us and they need help, we can get them involved in the process. But there is some tax benefits in Spain, the way that it can be set up to give you a lower initial tax rate, depending on whether you're going to be tax resident or not tax resident. Because it's worth saying at this point, and again, I don't know how much people watching know or don't know, but obviously even getting residency in Spain, you don't have to be a tax resident. You only become a tax resident if you spend more than 6 months in that calendar year in the country. So you can have a golden visa in Spain, never step foot in Spain, and there will be no tax liability in Spain. You're not tax resident in Spain at all. So it's good from that point of view. You can remain tax resident wherever you are at the moment. But there is tax benefits when if you eventually become a tax resident. And as I say, you get access to the pension here and the healthcare system here, similar to myself. So there's lots of benefits to the Spanish golden visa. And just to go through some of the facts and the myths about this, I've covered a lot of these points, so I'll whiz through this pretty quickly. But you have to spend time in Spain to maintain your golden visa, your residency. No, not at all. There is no minimum stay requirement whatsoever for Spain. You can come and go as you please. Next one, only residential real estate qualifies. No, any type of real estate. So it can be commercial, residential, or parking. And as I mentioned before, we favour commercial unless somebody knows that they're going to move and live in a certain house, and that's why they're moving. It makes little sense to pay the quite exceptionally higher taxes in buying real estate than it does initially to do commercial if you've got it fully managed for you. It's if you put your financial hat on, that makes by far the most sense. The other one is you have to have one property of at least 500,000. No, you can have more than one. And if anybody watching this has already got a property in Spain, it has to have been bought since 2013. It's September 2013, I believe. And as long as that property was bought since then, that can count towards your 500,000. But it would always go on the value you bought it for, not the value it's worth now, just to make you aware of that. So whatever it's bought for, whatever's on the deeds, that's what its value is. So you can have more than one property. And it can include anywhere from the Canaries to the Balearics, so not just mainland Spain. We tend to concentrate on opportunities in Barcelona and Madrid for the commercial, because we absolutely know that there's some fantastic opportunities there. You're going to make a very good return. There's a very high rental yield. You're going to have high occupancy rates. So that's why we tend to favour Barcelona and Madrid. Next one, the process is long and vague. Well, no, once you actually have the asset, it's really quick. 21 days is really quick. So this is why if you start the process now, you've got that asset under your belt, that 21 days, you can easily have that signed off pretty quickly there as well. The Spanish program is expensive, not at all. To actually renew, because your golden visa is initially for 3 years. You get the 1 year stamp on your passport, but then you get the card, that's for 3 years. Then you renew it for 5 years, then you renew it again for 5 years, and so on and so forth. So it's 3 years, 5 years, 5 years, 5 years. But the renewals are very minimal. You might, to actually do the process, it might be a couple of €100 compared to other countries where it can be thousands. So once you've actually got it, it's very cheap, ongoing cost for that as well. And the other point, you have to live in Spain for 10 years to qualify for citizenship. Not if you've got an ex-Spanish colony passport, which I'll come on to who qualifies for that. But if you have got an ex-Spanish colony passport, it's a fantastic program to get in on, and I'll come to that. So the Spanish passport, so this is citizenship. Most people will qualify in 10 years. Now, in that 10 years, you have to spend the last 5 years being tax resident in Spain, so staying more than 6 months for the last 5 years, and that will give you your passport. You have to do a language test, which I'll come on to, and a cultural test. But for all intents and purposes, for the last 5 years of the 10 years, you need to live in Spain to change it to a passport. If Spain wants to know that you want to live there, it makes sense. But if you are an ex-Spanish colony passport holder, when you apply, so you apply using the ex-Spanish colony passport, you can actually get the passport within the Spanish passport within 2 years. You have to still become tax resident for them 2 years. So you have to stay more than 6 months. But it's fantastic because you can actually have an EU passport, and the Spanish passport is ranked number 2 in the world in terms of its strength, in terms of what it does. It's an incredibly good passport to have. Ex-Spanish colonies is Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Equatorial Guinea, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, the Philippines, Uruguay, Venezuela, and in addition, Andorra and Portugal. But obviously, if you've got an Andorra or Portugal passport, you're not really going to need to do that anyway. But that's just to make you aware, there's lots of them there. Now, there's ways of doing it. If it's a joint application and the main applicant has got an ex-Spanish colony passport, then the other applicant, so the spouse, can actually get their passport within 3 years, because you have to live in Spain for a year with somebody you're married to who's got the Spanish passport. So once they get the Spanish passport after 2 years, if you live together, then that next year the spouse can apply for the Spanish passport as well. So a really good route for anyone that it applies to. You have to do your B2 language level and your cultural exam as well. Same with most visa schemes. And as I say, you have to live in Spain for 2 years if you're ex-Spanish colony, or 5 years if you are not. It says they're third best passport in the world, but as of the beginning of 2024, it has now been promoted to the second best passport, along with a couple of others. But yeah, really strong passport, Spain. And you can travel to 190 countries visa-free. And you can live and you can work anywhere in the EU. So the Spanish passport is a fantastic passport to have. But you don't necessarily need to have it. I keep saying that to people. But being a resident can be completely sufficient. But obviously, just be mindful of that. Now, as it stands at the moment, investment options that you have, and this is, as we know now, nothing has changed, but it will be changing. It's basically any real estate for 500,000 qualifies. And I'll come on to some options that we have that may suit people if they're looking to do this quickly and look for our help. I'll come on to that shortly. You can invest into a business, so have equity in a business, but that has to be €1 million. You could deposit in a bank account or an investment fund €1 million and keep it there. That will get you a golden visa. Or the least popular, non-surprising, is the government bonds, which you need to have €2 million. So these are very high entry points. And this is what makes people nervous really about the Spanish golden visa, because unlike Portugal, where Portugal removed real estate, at that same time, it did have funds, investment funds, as an option for 500,000. So even though the property went, the funds remain there. So you could still actually qualify for 500,000. You just have to do it through an investment fund, not through real estate. However, with Spain, the next best option behind real estate is equity in a business for 1 million or a bank deposit account for 1 million. So if, for example, Spain did get rid of the golden visa and say, right, it's gone as of the end of this year, then you could only get a golden visa for 1 million euros or more. Now, it's very unlikely that the government will change the equity in the business amounts or the bank or deposit amounts, because quite frankly, that is just good for the economy. People putting money into the banks here, it's good for them. It's the real estate that they're focusing on, rightly or wrongly, is what they're looking at and doing a review on at the moment. Now, these are the real estate options, the commercial versus residential. And this is really important for anybody thinking about whether you use us or whether you do it yourself. You really need to look at these options and what is going to be best for you. So these are three different options we do. Now, you've got residential here on the right-hand side. Okay, you've got a commercial asset of 500,000 here on the left-hand side. And in the middle, we've got the 350,000 option that we offer. Now, first and foremost, when you buy a commercial asset, your transfer taxes, depending on where you buy, but if you look at Madrid or Barcelona, one of them, Madrid is 1.5%. And Barcelona is 2.5%, or the other way around. But they're very low rates. If you compare that to buying a residential, you're going to be looking at anywhere between 8 and 11.5%. So if you put that into value of money, it's going to cost you 40,000 euros more to buy a residential asset than a commercial asset straight away. So if you are buying something that's residential with a view that you know you're not going to live there and you might just see what what it's like, and you might sell it again in a year's time, you paid 40 or 50,000 you really didn't need to pay. So looking at commercial assets is a lot cheaper. The average rental yield on a commercial asset tends to be around 4 or 5%. It can be up to 6% actually on that. With residential, it tends to be more like 2 or 3%. So it's lower. And also with regards to tenants, if you are going to rent out a residential property, most of the costs go with the landlord and not the tenant. With commercial, it's slightly different. The tenants will cover pretty much most of the expenses of the asset. So these are the difference there between the commercial and the residential. So if you take if you use what's the best way to put it, using your brain as a decision on this, if you, for example, are going to come over to Spain, you don't know where you're going to live, but you're going to want to take your time, like I did when I came to Spain, to work out where is the best place to live, where do I want to be. Well, at the end of the day, that's going to take you time, and you don't want to go and buy a residential asset here only to find out that where you thought you wanted to live isn't where you want to live at all, and then you're going to sell it, and you've got to then move, and then you've got to pay another 50,000 on the new residential asset you then go and buy, plus all the other costs and everything else associated with it. So from that point of view, you're saving a lot of money on the purchase as well. And what we've done here, and I'll talk about the 350,000 option. There is another point someone mentioned while I think about it. Someone mentioned to me today, which kind of didn't think too much of. But the other thing about buying a residential asset as well to be aware of is one problem we do have here in Spain is rights of squatters. So if you have a property and someone comes in and let's say you buy a residential asset and you don't, you're not living in it all the time, and you get squatters go in, it is incredibly hard to get them out in Spain. The law pretty much favors the squatters, and I've heard story after story about this. Obviously with commercial asset you don't get that, but with residential asset you do. So that is a reason some people also look towards commercial as well. On the other hand, on the other side of things, we can do residential for people, by the way. So anyone wants to look for a potential second home, we can do that, but it's just to make you aware, as it costs a lot more. So if for example you bought a commercial asset for 500,000, you can have the income coming in of 4 or 5%, which we can manage for you. You can then use that to actually rent a property while you decide where you want to live. That's one way of doing it as well. So it's basically a rational investment decision versus residential. You don't want it to be an emotional decision. You want to be what's going to get you the golden visa the quickest and for the lowest amount of cost. And that would be a commercial asset. What we put together is the 350,000, which is a sort of turnkey solution. And the idea of this is that an investor would put in 350,000, and that you would have to pay taxes and lawyers and legal fees on top of that. But it's going to be a region of about 370,000 all in for the total application of everything, including getting your visa. You get paid 150,000 rental income up front, which is the equivalent of 10 years at 3%. And that then gives you the 500,000. So you have an asset worth 500,000 and you've only put in 350,000 plus obviously the cost, but 350,000. The 150,000 is paid up front. So your asset's worth 500,000 at the outset. And then at the end of 10 years, we will manage that property completely for you. So you wouldn't have nothing to do with it in terms of all the taxes are filed on your behalf. So you don't get involved in it at all. Filed for you. The ongoing maintenance is all paid. There is no ongoing costs whatsoever on that. And we also have another option, but I'll come on to that shortly. So this is basically how the 350,000 commercial sale and leaseback option works. So we will find a property in Madrid or Barcelona. We had about 15 last week and they all went last week. So I know we were down to 2 a couple of days ago because everyone is so jumping on it now. So we're trying to find assets for people as and when they want them, but it is becoming more difficult because we don't actually know how this is going to change. So we don't want to end up with, I suppose, lots of assets on the book. If it completely changes in a year's time, then we don't want to end up with that. So at the moment, be very mindful of that. They are going very quickly. But essentially, we will look at a commercial asset, could be retail, catering, whatever that may be, Barcelona or Madrid. We do all the due diligence. We do everything on that. If you invest in that option, so you select the option, once you've done that, you would put in 350,000. You'd be paid 150,000 up front, and that will give you the golden visa. The 500,000 commercial asset will then get you the golden visa. At the end of year 10, because you've been paid 10 years rental income up front, you have 3 options after 10 years. Option 1, you can exercise a buyback option. So the buyback option is 350,000. So at the end of 10 years, you know categorically, written into the contract, you'll get your 350,000 back. Does that represent a great investment? Not really, because you spent 350,000 in 10 years' time, you're only getting 350,000 back. But what it does do is it makes sure that you know, at a very worst case scenario, you get your money back. That will happen, whatever. That's written into the contract. Option 2 is you sell it on the open market, which we would facilitate for you. So at the end of the 10 years, you sell it on the open market. If it was initially worth 500,000, then in 10 years' time, Barcelona or Madrid, you can almost guarantee it's going to be worth a lot more than that. And that would be probably the best exit route for most people. But obviously, you've got the option there of the buyback for 350 if you want. The other option is you maintain ownership of the asset, which can be popular for people as well, because after the 10 years, you then can start to be paid an income from it. And if it's doing really well and you've got a really good commercial asset in the middle of Barcelona or Madrid, then you might just want to keep that for the income it gives you, and that would then be your income, your money coming in. If you want to get out of it before year 10, so the reason year 10 is there, by the way, because that's when people can qualify for the passport. So it's written into the sort of 10 year, because then you can change that then to be a passport holder and sell the asset. Because once you're a passport holder, you don't need to have the asset anymore. You don't need the qualifying asset. But if you want to get out before year 10, you can do. So from year 5, there are guaranteed buybacks. So year 5 is 175, goes up to 210, 245, until year 10 is 350. So that allows people, if you want to get out early, you can do. But obviously, you don't get all your money back because you've had some of that rental income paid up front. So obviously, we had to do sort of actuarial reductions on what we paid back. But in terms of a 10-year, fantastic as a 10-year option. But obviously, you've got the option to go out a bit earlier. Now, I'm going to say at this point as well, we have another option in case people are interested. And please, anyone wants more details, please just drop me an email or make an appointment or just ask me questions. We've also introduced, which we did about 2 weeks ago, arguably bad timing, but it's a hotel option. So it's a similar principle that there's a hotel chain in Spain. They've got 28 hotels all around Spain. So they've been here a long, long time. They're called the Soho Boutique Hotel Group. And they're building a new hotel in Spain, in Madrid, in Spain. And they're going to raise money via people investing in. So their deal is basically, which we do through us, is that someone would invest 350,000. They are again given 150,000 upfront, which is paid by the hotel. So the asset is worth 500,000. It costs you 350. It's a lot more simply, this one, because at the end of the 10 year, it's simply written into the contract that they will buy it back off you for 500,000. So right at the outset, your money that you've invested is going to be worth 500,000 in 10 years' time. There's no early exit on it, so that if it's not as flexible for some people, but for some people it's great. You're going to have made that 3% a year. You're going to get 500,000 in year 10. You don't have the option to sell it in the open market. It's written to the contract that the hotel wants it back. but to raise the money, they do it through investments, basically, such as that. So a really good option for some people, the hotel option. And also any money that's invested into the hotel, it's secured against the entire 28 hotel chain. So it's incredibly safe investment for anybody looking to invest. So these are the options we have. There's these 350,000 options, which are incredibly popular with people. If you want the most flexible option, then that will always be the 500,000 commercial option, which we can facilitate. We've got 500,000 options or 500,000 plus options in Madrid, in Barcelona. You're looking at rental yields of around 5 to 6%. We can fully manage that for you. You can have a passive income coming in. It keeps your initial costs lower because you don't have to have the higher transfer taxes, etc., etc. So we can also look at that option. So we've got the hotel option, the commercial option for 350, and a commercial for 500,000 options. So this is what we have at the moment. But as I say before, we are getting very inundated with people now looking to move. We've been doing these webinars for quite a long time, and there's been a lot of people that have shown interest, but kind of been holding off for 6 months, a year. But now everyone wants to pull the trigger on it. So we have to be very, we're trying to sort of deal with what we have coming in. But anyone that's looking for help, we're more than sort of happy to do that. So I'll go through some of the questions we've had in. Again, I'm conscious of time. We've only got around 5 minutes left, so I'll do the best I can on the questions I have. But please make a note of my email or my WhatsApp telephone number there. You can scan the QR code, as I mentioned, but if you do that, it's only going to show my available slots. And I know there's not that many at the moment, but if people contact me directly and it's something, they want to speak with urgently, then I can fit that into my diary or answer your questions via your email as well. Okay, first question. Can you put a partner you're not married to on it? Yes, you can, as long as you can show that that you essentially are connected. For example, you're living together. I forget what the word for it is, but as long as you're living together, you've been living together. It's not someone you've just met last week, and you're trying to put them on. If you are living together, you have a relationship where that can be proven to be the case. I don't mean having to show loads and loads of information, but to show that you are partners, then absolutely you don't need to be married. Did you hear about young people in Spain having to leave their cities because foreign real estate rising prices, a lack of affordable housing? Yes, no, absolutely. There is. I mean, there's a lack of what in terms of the prices of property, all we can do is go on statistics. There are certain parts of Spain where absolutely the housing market struggled, but it struggled for a lot more reasons than the golden visa. I think you could just look at statistics alone. I know they mentioned here about the lack of water in Spain. I know there's been a bit of a drought in Spain. I'm down in the south of Spain. I know we have water restrictions. So these things happen when you live in a country such as this. And obviously it's important for the Spanish government to put their citizens at the front of everything. But I do think sometimes things are done as a kind of political statement. We're a new government coming in. We want to show that we're doing something without actually having the backing of the figures, which clearly show if 0.25 to 0.5% of transactions are to do with the golden visa, it's really not going to have any effect in removing that. It doesn't take a genius to work that out. We've got here to do income tax yield on rent. Okay, so when it comes to the taxations, what we would do is we would essentially get we work with this company called Orients behind the scenes. They do a lot of the back office for us. They've been around since 2013 when the golden visa started. So they do a lot of back stuff. They have an in-house tax advisor as well. So anybody looking to make the move, we can get them involved. If you want to use us, we can talk you through that. I've got some of the other questions here. I've only got a couple of minutes. Golden visa versus non-lucrative visa. Well, non-lucrative visa is great, but obviously you need to, with a non-lucrative visa, not to be working in Spain. So you're not allowed to work. It's not a work permit for Spain. You get the non-lucrative visa. You have to prove that you have the means to live in Spain when you apply as well. So initially it's for a year, and then you renew it for 2 years, 2 years, 2 years. But you need to prove that you are financially okay to live in the country, which you need to do. So it's more restrictive. The golden visa is far more, the all singing, all dancing, the more flexible option as well. So if the golden visa is achievable for you, the golden visa would always be far more recommended over the non-lucrative visa. Does the gold visa include adult stepchildren and spouses? Children, yes. Stepchildren, yes. But it would have to be that they're dependent, and spouses, yes. So as I say before, it has to be spouses, children, as long as they're dependent, 65-year and older, parents, as long as they're dependent as well. We know what we need to do to prove that as well. So be sort of mindful of that, but we can certainly guide everybody and put everybody through the process to make sure that it's all accepted. Okay. Qualifying investment fund options in shares of Spanish companies. Right, so this is probably something we're going to look more into once real estate goes. I mean, through our experience, 94% of all golden visa applications have been via residential, and it's the cheaper option. When we're looking at Portugal, there are some very good fund options where you can incorporate property into a fund and get a passport after 5 years. With low minimum stay requirements, which we can also talk through. But in terms of Spain, it would need to be a minimum of $1 million anyway, as it stands at the moment, which is obviously a high amount. So it's probably something we will look into. But at the moment, we find a lot of people are trying to do it for a very cost-effective amount. And that's where we're kind of stepping in and help. So requirements and real estate options for GV. So I've gone through some of the commercial assets we have, the 350,000 options to 500,000 options. We do have a real estate team that can look at residential options. But again, residential is more difficult because we've now got a time limit on this. We need to get everything in ASAP if we want it to go through. And obviously then to go around and start sort of looking at residential properties and going back and forth can be very difficult as well. So we're trying to concentrate, if you like, on what we know works and what we know we can get through quickly, which is why we're sort of looking a lot on the commercial asset side at the moment and what we have on our books. Right. So fees on obtaining the golden visa. So our total in fees, it depends on how many people are on the application. But if you're looking at a 350,000 application, including all taxes, transfer taxes, lawyers, solicitors, applying for the golden visa, everything, you're looking probably around 370, 372. Something along that figure. So it's relatively low as the extra costs go, and that's all taxes, everything included, with no ongoing costs whatsoever, and the guaranteed buyback. Right, I'm looking at time now, so we are just approaching the hour mark. So I know there's a few more questions I haven't answered, but I know I don't want to keep repeating myself to go through. So what I suggest everybody watching, if you can make a note of my email, put me on WhatsApp there. You can scan the QR code. If you want to talk about it in more detail, then obviously contact me. It's just to be aware that, as I say, we know through what happened with Portugal, we know we're going to have time. I mean, we know this because we know it's the process you'd have to go through in Spain. We're going to have time to be able to do this, but we know that the earlier you get in now, the more we know we're 100% okay with it. We had people in Portugal maybe wait a couple of months, 2 or 3 months after they heard the news that it's been withdrawn, and they're the ones that was a real struggle towards the end. But as I say, in all the applications we've done, we've had a 100% success rate. So, we know what we're doing behind the scenes. So please feel free to sort of pick our brains. Hope you found that useful. I will see you all soon. Take care.